Good morning. It's Saturday, July 12th, 2025. Yes, Saturday. A day of rest, but not for me. It's a day of work, and I'm grateful to have it. And today's message is, how dumb can a person be with a smartphone? Part 3. I'm just really becoming more surprised and curious as to how so many problems remain unresolved as a result of people not having enough intelligence to access resources that would give them so many answers to questions that they have and problems that need to be solved in their lives. But one thing I would say is that if you're going to complain about racism, bigotry, ask ChatGPT. Does racism have as much of an impact on a person's life in today's technologically advanced environment or not? And if so, what can a person do to minimize its effects, if any, on their life? I don't know how many people have yet to ask ChatGPT this question, but I'm pretty sure most, or the answer that ChatGPT is going to say is for somebody to spend a good portion of their day worrying about what's in the mind of somebody else is going to really take away from the many opportunities to advance oneself financially beyond the influence or impact of racism. So what I would say is that you can never learn enough where racism will ultimately still have a negative effect on you. And what I'm saying is this. In Africa, South Africa, the government had rules to where many of the white businesses could not hire black people, and that they had to have preferential hiring practices for white people. But what many white business owners found, that the government was forcing them to pay these white workers a certain amount of money, even though all of the jobs that were available did not qualify that person to earn that kind of money. Meaning that if I'm running a business and I know that some of the positions that I have are really not that valuable to where I'll have to pay the minimum wage, but I still have to pay the minimum wage, somehow that cost has to be transferred into the product or labor service that I'm producing to compensate for this mandatory regulation that the government is imposing. And if it can't be covered by passing that cost along to the consumer of my service, then I'm going to have to figure out some way to either eliminate that service and still present my product, which means I'm going to have to cut bodies, or I'm going to have to figure out some loophole or some slick workaround that's going to still allow me to remain competitive in that work job market. So what you're going to have to end up doing is figuring out a way to get around it. And so many of these white business owners were able to sneak in black laborers and pay them way less than what they would pay the white employees. And thus, what apartheid was trying to do actually was undermined by the very pressures that capitalistic systems create. And capitalistic systems create are really naturally competitive environments. A lot of people hate the fact that ChatGPT is coming in to eliminate a lot of clerical jobs and unskilled worker jobs. But what does that mean? Unskilled means that it has little to no value. And our society has done so many things to give opportunities to people with little to no skills that it became more of a joke that our society would allow for these low competitive positions to even exist. Even though we celebrate sporting events, we spend a lot of money going to see these elite athletes, the best of the best, compete for a trophy. What is a trophy? A trophy is an idol. It is a symbol. It is a representative of accomplishment that is also backed by money, value. Because these people would not be competing for this idol if it didn't have something of real true value behind it. Most of the men that in football that compete for the Super Bowl trophy get paid millions, if not tens of millions of dollars, and they get bonuses for winning that prize coveted trophy, the Vince Lombardi trophy. So it's at a point where, on one hand, we celebrate the competitive nature of life. We study it in biology, where, we do the little petri dish lab test where we spread bacteria on a dish that has certain nutrients or certain chemicals that would allow certain entities to thrive and then certain entities to not. But eventually, if you put whatever you're going to put in that petri dish, it's going to reach a state of balance, and then eventually it's going to reach a state of real competition where only the strong will be able to survive and only the really strong will be able to thrive in that environment. So for everybody that's crying about, ChatGPT's taking my job, maybe you're on the low level of the competitive spectrum to where you're going to be eliminated. And when you get eliminated, don't cry. Because I was watching this video where a lot of people used to look down on a lot of these delivery drivers in China. And this one guy was actually talking about how he got into it kind of late in the game, and he was kind of trying to learn the system. And a lot of the more experienced delivery persons, they were almost like the way bees have been discovered to have really elaborate travel routes based on how, as they have run through the environment, they've created elaborate, highly efficient routes for collecting the nectar of the flowers. So, or the pollen, whatever they're trying to collect, they literally have some of the most efficient scheduling routes and things like this. And so the guy was telling on the video how some of the more profitable riders of deliveries would take on 2-3 routes at one particular time because they knew how to efficiently line things up to where they don't waste a lot of time driving to one destination to the next. They create a route where they can go out, and by the time they get near the end of the last delivery, they're already back close to home base. So those are the things that made him realize that as trivial this profession appears to be, there involves a certain degree of skill. And now a lot of these office workers are trying to jump into this so-called unskilled labor division, but they can't really compete there either because they didn't realize, oh my God, these guys who have been making money on delivery, they're making money on delivery because they're very smart at what they're doing. And I wouldn't be surprised if some of these people that are doing those deliveries are not involving ChatGPT as to take on these routes and to figure out the most efficient way to make the delivery, create a circular loop to where they're not wasting time driving back home after they've made this last delivery. They're going to make the last delivery one that's going to bring them as close to home base as possible. So here we go. We have smartphones, and as much as we've been puffed up with pride to think that we're working in this air-conditioned space, wearing beautiful clothes and things like this, now we're going to have to roll up our sleeves and get competitive. You're going to have to get your hands dirty. And getting your hands dirty doesn't mean you can't still stay in the office and make your money, but you're going to be eliminated by ChatGPT, because ChatGPT doesn't sleep or slumber. So a lot of work that you plan on trying to do in 8 hours, ChatGPT will never sleep. He'll never stop. So you better figure out something that's going to give you real value in the human world, and stop crying about how these non-human entities are eliminating jobs that were really worthless, to the degree that they're able to take them over and eliminate you. You better figure out something other than complaining and crying and asking the government to intervene, because the government's going to intervene, and they're going to try to create rules to keep you in this bull crap job, but you're going to get eliminated. And eventually those companies that can't do like what they did in South Africa, kind of look to the left, look to the right, while the government ain't watching, or the government don't have enough staff to enforce this rule, to where they got to hire these unskilled white people and pay them money that really doesn't support the value of the position, you're going to get eliminated. It's just over. So I just hope this video will help people stop complaining and understand the environment is changing. We've got to adapt. And if you don't adapt, you're gonna die. You know, ultimately we all die, but I think in the meantime and in between time, we have so many opportunities to do better and to become more integrated with this world and with life. Talk to you guys later.